Amina hurried home, feeling the change coming. The last rays of sunlight made the skyscrapers glow in gold and red, but she had no time to enjoy it. She slammed her apartment door shut and leaned against it, breathing hard. Panic had replaced her usual calm. She glanced at the clock. It said 7 p.m. She stumbled to her bedroom, tearing off her work clothes. By the time she reached her bed, her legs were stiff. She collapsed onto the mattress, her body shaking. A sharp pain shot through her legs. Horrified, she watched as her toes fused together, skin stretching and changing. Her legs turned into one, twisting and growing longer. Scales appeared, shining in the dim light. The pain was intense, but Amina bit her lip to stop herself from screaming. Her hips narrowed, her spine stretched. The pain began to fade, replaced by a smooth, flowing feeling. Her senses sharpened. She could hear the city's distant hum, a mouse in the walls, the night breeze through the window. Her vision changed, showing her new colors and details. Amina's transformation was complete. She lay there for a moment, her snake body coiled around her, breathing heavily. The room was silent except for her heartbeat, now slow and steady. She raised her head, tasting the air with her forked tongue. She was a creature of the night now, a silent guardian, a hunter in the urban jungle. With smooth, easy movements, she slithered off the bed and across the floor. The city was hers, and under the cover of darkness she would carry out her secret mission. The serpent had awakened. You are watching the Tales of the Savannah. Subscribe and be part of the tribe. Now let's get back to the story. Amina was born into a family deeply connected to ancient African spiritual practices. She remembered clearly the day her life changed. She had been sick from work for about a week, thinking it was the flu, but it was not. It was a transfer. Her grandmother had been ailing for a while, and the curse had to be passed on. On the day her grandmother passed away, Amina woke up in pain, the pain she now knew so well. "Why me?" she asked her mother the next day on the phone. Why? Her mother didn't know what to say. "We will figure something out, darling. We will figure something out." This was to be Amina's life now, and she had to accept it. As a snake, Amina discovered she had a mission to protect the city from hidden threats that only she could sense and stop. Her serpent form allowed her to navigate the city's dark corners, where she uncovered plots and dangers unseen by ordinary people. Amina remembered the first time she helped someone. It had been a cold night, and she was slithering through the alleyways. She heard a faint cry for help. Following the sound, she found a young girl trapped in a dark, narrow space between two buildings. The girl was scared and crying. Amina knew she had to act fast. She slipped into the tight space, her snake body moving effortlessly. She reached the girl, gently wrapping around her to pull her out. The girl's eyes had widened in fear at first, but soon realized Amina was there to help. She whispered words of comfort as she guided the girl to safety. The girl ran home, confused and afraid. Thus, the legend of the snake girl began. Another time, Amina found herself in the heart of a dangerous plot. She overheard two men in a dark warehouse, planning to rob a local shop and hurt the owner. Amina stayed hidden in the shadows, listening to their every word. When the men left to carry out their plan, she followed them silently. As they prepared to break into the shop, Amina struck. She bit one man on the ankle, her venom paralyzing him instantly. The other man, terrified, ran away. The shop owner, hearing the noise, came out to see what had happened. He found one man lying on the ground and no sign of the other. Amina had saved him and his shop. All he saw was a tail slithering into the alley. Sometimes it was enough to show herself to these men, and they would go running in opposite directions. The legend of the snake girl grew. "Amina, did you hear about the snake girl who is saving us all?" a girl from the office asked. "I heard she patrols the streets better than the police," another added. "There are no more drug dealers in my neighborhood or petty crimes," said another. "It's been safe for me to walk home," someone else mentioned. Amina smiled. She had no story of her own to add to this. As she looked at her co-workers sing her praises, she felt a sense of sadness. She would never be normal like these girls before her. She missed the days she was carefree. Now she had to get home by 7 p.m. every night in case she was needed. Sometimes she was awakened by the transformation at odd hours, slithering through the streets and coming back to go back to work. This was her life now. On the other side of town, a man sat in his office fuming at the reports he was getting. His name was Kwame, and he was the leader of the city's most notorious crime syndicate. His dark eyes burned with rage as one of his men nervously reported the latest setback. "Boss, we can't go out there. The snake lady shows up every time we're on the streets. We've already lost 2 guys to her venom," the man stammered. Kwame sat back in his leather chair, contemplating his next move. He was losing too much money because of this mysterious serpent woman, and the anger inside him was building by the second. He needed her gone, but how could he fight something so elusive and deadly? Kwame hadn't always been the ruthless leader of a crime syndicate. His story began in the dusty streets of a small village far from the city. Born to a poor family, Kwame learned early on that life was a constant struggle. His father worked the fields and his mother sold vegetables at the market. Despite their hard work, they barely made enough to survive. When Kwame was 10, a group of men came to the village. They were part of a rebel militia, recruiting young boys to join their ranks. Promising food, shelter, and a better life, they convinced Kwame to leave his family behind. The reality, however, was far from what they had promised. Kwame found himself in a brutal world where violence and survival were the only rules. As he grew older, Kwame learned to navigate this dangerous environment. He quickly rose through the ranks of the militia, using his intelligence and ruthlessness to outmaneuver rivals. By the time he was 20, he had become one of the leaders. But Kwame wanted more than just power in a war-torn land. He wanted control over the thriving city he had heard so much about. Leaving the militia, Kwame moved to the city and started building his empire from the ground up. He began with small-time operations, protection rackets, drug dealing and smuggling. His natural charisma and cunning helped him recruit a loyal following. He knew how to exploit people's weaknesses, offering them what they needed most in exchange for their loyalty. Kwame's reputation grew, and so did his ambitions. He consolidated his power, taking over rival gangs and expanding his operations. He became a shadowy figure in the city's underworld, feared and respected by many. His name was whispered in dark alleys and behind closed doors. Now sitting in his opulent office, Kwame was reminded of the relentless fight it took to get here. He couldn't let a mysterious snake woman threaten everything he had built. He pounded his fist on the desk, the anger inside him boiling over. "We need to find her and stop her," Kwame growled. "I don't care what it takes. She must be eliminated." His men exchanged uneasy glances, knowing that failure was not an option. They had seen firsthand what Kwame was capable of when crossed. The hunt for the snake woman began. Amina hurried down the street, anxious to reach her apartment building. She felt a tingle in her toes, a warning that the transformation was about to begin. Just as she neared her building, a man stepped in her path. "Hi, I'm Dr. Kofi, an anthropologist specializing in African folklore and magic." "Not today, thank you," Amina said, rushing past him. She had no time to entertain this man. If she didn't get inside soon, she would transform into a snake right there on the street. Amina barely made it into her apartment before the change began. She muffled a scream as her body twisted and turned, her legs fusing together, scales appearing on her skin. Fully transformed, Amina's senses heightened. She slipped into the night, her snake body moving effortlessly through the shadows. The alleyways were clear of crime. She glided through neighborhoods, seeing nothing out of the ordinary. Maybe there was someone who needed her help. Amina paused, telling herself to quiet down and listen. She focused, trying to catch even the faintest sound. Then she heard it, a bullet whizzing past her head. The bullet grazed Amina's cheek, a sharp sting of pain snapping her to full alert. Her eyes narrowed, and she saw the shadowy figure of a man aiming a gun at her from the other end of the alley. Another shot rang out, and Amina darted to the side, her snake body moving with incredible speed and precision. She slithered through the darkness, using the narrow walls of the alley for cover. The man fired again, but this time she was ready. With a swift motion, she lunged forward, her fangs bared. She sank her teeth into his ankle, injecting her venom. The man screamed, dropping the gun as he collapsed to the ground, paralyzed by the venom. But Amina's victory was short-lived. More men emerged from the shadows, armed and ready. They aimed and shot at will, some finding their mark. She knew she couldn't fight them all in her injured state. She turned to flee, but another bullet caught her in the side, sending a wave of pain through her body. She faltered, her vision blurring. Just then, a voice called out, "This way!" Dr. Kofi appeared at the end of the alley, waving her over. Desperate and in pain, Amina slithered towards him, her strength fading. Dr. Kofi reached out, helping her through a small hidden door in the wall. It led to a dark underground tunnel. As soon as they were inside, he shut the door behind them, plunging them into darkness. He guided her deeper into the tunnel, away from the sounds of the men searching for her above. Amina's breathing was ragged, her body trembling from the pain and the effort to stay conscious. Dr. Kofi supported her as they moved, his presence a comforting anchor in the dark. They finally reached a small, dimly lit chamber. Dr. Kofi gently lowered her to the ground. "You're going to be okay," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "I know how to help you." He quickly gathered herbs and other supplies from his small bag. He mixed a paste and applied it to her wounds, the coolness of the herbs soothing her burning skin. He chanted softly, words of an ancient healing ritual. Amina felt the pain begin to fade, replaced by a warmth that spread through her body. As Amina drifted into a healing sleep, she realized she had met this man earlier that night. Who was he, and why was he helping her? She wanted to ask, but her eyelids were heavy. The tunnels offered an eerie comfort, the sound of water droplets making her even more drowsy. The last thing she heard was his gentle whisper, "Rest now. You're safe." Then silence embraced her, and she let go, surrendering to the peaceful darkness. And that, my dear tribe members, is the end of the first installment of our story of Amina the Snake Girl. This story was inspired by our Snake People series, which we all loved and enjoyed so much. Although this story is set in a different time period from our earlier tales, let me know your thoughts. Could Amina be related to Asa and the Snake People? Are there more modern-day Snake People? Please feel free to help me figure this out. Maybe we might get another interesting series from this storyline. And as always, thank you for watching our story, and we hope you enjoyed it. What lessons did you draw from this story? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of the tribe. Thank you for watching The Tales of the Savannah. We will see you next time in the Savannah.